understanding the consumer, and fulfilling the aspiration of that consumer through products which are wow. Almost we are covering 62 islands. Camon 30 Premier, maybe you will laugh, but we are better than iPhone in terms of camera. They also have aspiration. They will say, मेरा फोन है, दीपिका ऐड करती है. मेरा फोन है, स्पाइस जेट पे है. मेरा फोन है, हमारे गांव के दुकान के बाहर है. And we say we are democratizing technology, giving technology to the masses. 8K to 10K, we will have very aggressive 5G portfolio.
Welcome to another episode of TSW. Today we have a special treat for you. We are sitting down with Arijeet Talapatra, the man behind TECNO Mobile in India. You have seen the phone, you know the brand, they are almost everywhere. But what really is the secret sauce? Today we are going to dive deep into the smartphone space from 5G to foldable phones, uncover a little bit about the history of smartphones, and of course learn from Arijeet's own personal inspirational journey. Arijeet, thank you so much for doing with us. I am really interested in knowing your personal journey.
First of all, thanks for having me in your show. Really looking forward to that. See, the journey has been very interesting, almost 9 years in Transian. It has been an amazing journey. We launched different brands in India and it was really wow. Before that, I have been in Lava, Airtel and Unilever. So from FMCG to operator to devices. And we have seen India grow the Atmanirbhar way. Really amazing journey.
So, you started from as a salesperson, right? And today where you are, right? So can you tell us how has been the journey so far?
See, what I always believe is once you know the market means you know the consumer. If you can understand the pulse of the consumer, it helps you understand and develop products. It helps you understand your entire go-to market. It helps you design your marketing. So we talk about 4 Ps, but 4 Ps, everything is market. So if you know the market, you know the consumer. So being in Unilever and going very deep in deep urban and deep rural, you understand what is India, what is Bharat, and what does a consumer want, what is his aspiration. So this really helped me throughout this 30 years old journey.
So if you look back, did you ever envision that there will be a time where India will be at the forefront of this communication boom? If you look at the growth in terms of in terms of telecommunications, we are doing much better than a lot of developed markets. We are still one of the biggest markets and fastest as well, right? So, but if you think back, when we were just using landlines and just gradually transitioning from landlines to feature phones, did you ever think that this is not a novelty? It's like a need, and everybody's gonna have it.
Absolutely, it has been a crazy journey. I remember when I was in school, and my father was a government official. One day he said that we will have a MTNL phone in our home. But it took almost 8 months to get that phone installed. So that is what India was. And now you go to the rural villages, tier 6, a smaller taluka, you will see people using smartphones. So I will also like to congratulate the operators, the kind of work that they have done. See, India has the maximum usage of mobile data. Why? Because it is affordable. If you go to countries like Europe and all, if you leave the tier 1 and the tier 2 cities, even today it moves to 3G. But we are talking about 4G and 5G. And the affordability, you see a driver, a guard, a helper, anybody, they see live data. Earlier it was data card. They used to have a 2 GB, 4 GB, 6 GB data card. Now gone are these days. They see live TV. So really, the operators have really done a great job, then supported by all the OEMs in terms of devices. So India is really rocking, and I'm sure by 2030, we are already poised to be among the top 3 in terms of economies in the world. So, great direction for us.
So if people who are watching, just let them know that India has one of the cheapest data in the world, and one of the reasons why, and also the smartphones, we are one of the largest smartphone market in the world. So that has played a big role in the big transition which you see. And of course, the data prices have really, really democratized. If you compare it with what you get in Europe or maybe in America, in India, it's just very cheap. And that is why everybody is empowered to do so. So that is one anecdote, but still, like if you can share some anecdote, if you remember anything, when you saw the smartphones coming in, data becoming faster. How was when you were as a user? What did you think about it? What was the thought at that time?
See, when data became very, very affordable, at that times also, we did not have devices for those consumers. We were too much a 2G and a 3G country. And for a Bharat consumer, as I would like to say, we had phones 3,000, 4,000 rupees, but 512 MB RAM, maybe 1 GB, 2 GB. I still when I used to visit outlets, a retailer used to have a lot of complaining consumers कि मैं आपसे phone लेके गया, phone hang हो गया. Then I say, what is the configuration? He said 116. And then these people are not so educated. They have their WhatsApp, they have the movies and the photos downloaded, and their memory is full. And if we were having phones which were of a better configuration, they were very expensive. They were absolutely out of the reach of these consumers. But now the markets have changed. The markets have changed not for a 232 or a 216. It is a 364, it's a 464. And then there are operators who are also talking about 100 GB cloud or a 1 TB cloud at a very, very affordable prices. India has already started talking about it. So now maybe in the near future, consumers will say 16 GB, 32 GB does not make sense. I have 1 GB or a 1 TB cloud with me at maybe a very, very low rental per month. So the way we are working on understanding the consumer, and it is not a single organization it's doing it. It is a multiple, be it operators, be it devices, be it the software, be it the chipset, and the entire government of India supporting this entire digital Bharat movement. It's wow, actually.
This brings me like a lot of nostalgic memories. There was a time when we got excited for a smartphone because it was coming with a dual core chipset, and it was like blew our mind. Now you get at certain price you are getting a dual core chip, right? And from there within a decade, it's not like that old. And if you see now, even if you can't even wrap your head around like something like this, the chipsets have become smarter, much more comprehensive, and also very efficient. The sizes they are going as small as like 3 nanometers, right? So it's been amazing, right? The way the India's trajectory has been. So now one of the things which I wanted to ask, and don't mind me asking also, sure. And I want to be very straightforward because brands are there, like a lot of brands, smartphone brands are there, right? So why should someone buy a TECNO brand? What is the unique thing about TECNO that a customer should look up to? What are the USPs? What are the highlights? What makes it different from other brands?
I'm very happy that you did ask this question. Before we launched TECNO, in fact, me along with our chairman, we traveled across India and we visited small panchayat. We sat under a tree in a charpai and wanted the youth to come and say, what is that you look in a smartphone? And what is that you get? Mm-hmm. The aspirations of India is very, very high. The education levels are very high. Now it's not like the Mumbai, Delhi, Gurgaon, Hyderabad, Bangalore youth is only educated. Go to a tier 6, that youth is equally educated. He understands the ecosystem very well. But there are not many brands who have a distribution in those markets. They don't have service centers in those markets. And they are not thinking about how to bring trust of the brand in these kind of markets. Because at the end of the day, what does a consumer want? Consumer want a device, a tech device. Trust is very important. He should be enjoying what he is using. The camera, the display, the entire back panel of the phone, because people like to flaunt about what color, what phone, how is the back panel. So all these things, it's a mix and match. And at the end of the day, it is the aspiration of the consumers. And at the end of the day, what we say is stop at nothing. Beyond the extraordinary. That is what Techno is all about. And what we really work is understanding the consumer and fulfilling the aspiration of that consumer through products which are wow.
So it's very unique thing, that, we have, like, in my life, I've covered quite a few smartphone brands. They don't really talk about all these demographic, for them, urban cities are like, top targets, because I think it's also low hanging fruit, because it's easy to reach them. The distribution network is simpler. Logistics are easier, right? But it's very, very, but I want to understand how hard was it to set up that kind of, to target, to tap into those kind of segments, as you said, like tier smaller towns and tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities, right? Where, the aspirations are there, educations are there, they are connected at this, but at the same time, they don't have access to it. And also they want quality stuff. They don't want just because they're living in smaller towns doesn't mean that they would not have a good quality phone.
Sure. See, I will not say it was easy, because initially to reach a country which is as big as India, you need to do a lot of investment. Investment in distribution, investment in our service network. And we did not open our distributors before we had a service center in that market. That was the first principle. And Kalcare is our own brand which provides service Kashmir to Kanyakumari, maybe Kutch to Arunachal Pradesh, Lakshadweep, Andaman, Nicobar, Leh. We have direct distributors across. We have service centers across. We have logistic warehouses across all the states. So it was a lot of investment initially. But did that investment help us? Absolutely yes. Because if you need to really want to serve the consumer, you have to be ensuring that you need to serve them. Like I remember one of the automobile companies, when I was young, they say, go to Leh, you will have a service center in Leh. And that was really amazing. That time, lot of new automobile companies were coming in India. So what we can really say is, we are not a brand which is only online. We are not a brand which is only in tier 1 and tier 2 or in urban metros. We are there in urban metros. We are there in online. We are there in tier 1, tier 2. But we are also there in tier 6. We are there in out of 600 islands of Andaman, Nicobar. Almost we are covering 62 islands. So that is how deep we are.
That's really something, right? So Techno has been, like, as you said, like, you have been around for a long time. The brand has been there for a very long time. And I happened to use one of the old Camon series, right? And at that time I thought, the device could be much more competitive, because at that time there were so many brands offering at much higher spec stuff. And at that time I thought, like, maybe it could be better. Like, but since then, like, how do you see, the competition has gotten tougher, of course. And how do you rate the Camon or your smartphone's quality? How has this improved so far in these years?
See, first of all, thanks for your feedback. We always have a very clear direction that we should give the best to the consumers. But it's also important that whether the consumer also likes it, the way we like it. So we would like to know, after this maybe interaction, I would like to know greater details about the handset that he used. Because Camon, when we started, we were in the first model. We were, in terms of the specs that we had, we were segment first, and the consumers really loved it. Camon is all about a camera-centric phone. Camon 30 Premier that we have recently launched It had wow in terms of results. Recently, we had a shoot in Goa, calendar shoot in Goa, and we had Canon 30 Premier along with DSLR camera. And you will be happy to know the pictures of Canon 30 Premier were much, much better. 350 megapixel camera, ultra zoom, amazing camera. And I'm not only talking about the camera, the chipset, the look, the display, the battery, everything was wow. And the consumers are really loving the Canon 30 Premier. So similarly, but it's a journey. We are also learning. And at times, since I'm not saying only Techno does a great job, Canon 30 Premier, maybe you will laugh, but we are better than iPhone in terms of camera. But yeah, are we not learning? We are learning from the brands. We are also continuously comparing each of the brands. Somebody in some of the specs may be better than us. Then we try to learn from them. But overall, as an entire package, we are mostly offering either segment first, country first, in terms of specs, in terms of pricing.
So, just wanted to add a little bit to this is that, take my comments on on the performance of any smartphone, because the way reviewers use the phone, especially for a small period of time, the long-term use case is slightly different. The real customer, when you use a phone for say 2 years, 1 year, then only you get to know how the phone was. So take that comment as a pinch of salt, but that is one thing which was there, and I said it. I also want to understand, there is this positioning of for the smaller markets and everything, right? But at the same time, I see there is a bit of aggressive marketing push. I want to understand the positioning, and that kind of I want to understand what is the positioning of the smartphone brand. You have a partnership. I remember the deal with SpiceJet, right? So the SpiceJet consumers are not in tier 6, right, sir? So how does it work? What was the experiment? Did it give you any ROI? What was the ROI? And I really want to understand, how are you positioning your brand at the moment?
Again, a question I wanted you to ask regarding SpiceJet. Mm-hmm. And when we were discussing about this deal, we ourselves were not sure whether we should go ahead with SpiceJet or not. But then we had a deep discussion with them. You will be amazed to know, now Indian aviation industry is doing so good. It is not the metro tier 1 and tier 2 where flights are. You go to a Gorakhpur, your flight is full. Last week I went to Shirdi. The flight going and coming was completely full. You go to smaller places, Shirdi, you still say Sai Baba Mandir, because of which the flights are full. You go to Prayagraj. Earlier people used to go by train. Flights are full. So even in tier 3, where we have airports, and thanks to our country's infrastructure, we have airports across now. Earlier it was the state capital that had airports. Now state capital plus have airports. So that had the visibility. But it's not only SpiceJet, the wrapping of that aircraft, be it in a rural market, in-shop activity, out of home, maybe some wall cladding. Plus, we have Deepika as our brand ambassador. So you may say, Deepika so expensive. But India knows Deepika. And when you talk about brand trust and you want to flaunt about your brand, then they will also want to have higher aspiration. When you talk about tier 4, tier 5, tier 6, they also have aspiration. They will say, मेरा फोन है, दीपिका ऐड करती है. मेरा फोन है, SpiceJet पे है. मेरा फोन है, हमारे गांव के दुकान के बाहर है. सोशल में है, डिजिटल में है. So now when you talk about brand marketing, no. Earlier, 2 or 3 companies used to completely dominate the marketing, be it cricket, be it in social, digital, come out of the airport, only 2 or 3 brands were there. Now things have changed. And now we work on extremely good products. But to enhance the confidence of the consumer, we also work a lot around communicating with them. Like you talked about Camon. Camon, we are there in more than 70 countries. Now we are very big in Africa. The kind of skin tone that they want is very different from a skin tone that a consumer in Philippines wants than a skin tone that a consumer of India wants. India consumer wants true skin tone. We have huge R&D investments across these countries. And when we talk about camera, imaging, technology, we always see that what is the kind of image or what is the kind of picture that an Indian consumer wants. Now, if we are working on that, how do we communicate to the consumer? Then we need to communicate, then we have to be 360 degree. Also all festivals, everywhere. And it's not only Hindi, we have Punjabi. Recently in Bengal, there is one of the most successful movies, Bohurupi. It's doing extremely good and it launched during Durga Puja. We were, in a way, the sponsors for that movie and it's doing wow. So we are in a way connecting with the consumers, regional consumers, because it's not only Hindi or the West where Deepika is very popular. It's not that she is not popular in East and South. She is popular everywhere. But then you need to also connect with regional audience. So that's what we are doing.
Great. Thank you so much for your insight on that one. Now coming to the next, a little bit about, again, from marketing we're moving to a little bit about business, right? So at some point, you had a great window of opportunity where if you look at the other competition, they were trying to chase the premium segment, targeting that. And that was the time. Do you think you missed out on that bus on tapping into that where the budget smartphone space was relatively open, right? And while these brands were chasing the, say, mid to premium segments, right, you could have tapped into it and maybe use that window of opportunity to make the brand bigger than what it is right now?
See, when you look back, there are always some hits and some misses. Mm-hmm. But that time, what we really understood is we were already doing extremely good in the less than 10K segments, especially in the 10 to 12K segment. But when we used to speak to our consumers, they said, "Aur kya? What else can you offer?" Mm-hmm. That is where we started moving from 12K to 25K. That is where we started with our Fold and Flip. That is where we started with the Phantom series of X2, X2 Pro, the Camon series. Because the consumer is also growing. A consumer which is a 10K consumer, when he wants to buy a next phone, maybe he is very happy with Techno. But he wants an equally good phone of Techno at 15, 16K. Maybe his aspiration from a 464 has moved to 256. Maybe a better camera, a Super AMOLED display. So all these things we are continuously talking to our consumers. Our research MICI team is continuously talking to the consumers. So when you go back, maybe if we only focus on one segment, we could have got a better market share in that segment, maybe a couple of, but we would have missed the mid to high to premium segment, because India, the ASP is moving very fast. The ASP is 24 to 27,000 now. 2 years back, the ASP was almost 12 to 14,000. So this is the speed at which the ASP is moving. So we have to move with the market.
But again, those brands have come back to the budget segment now. They're getting back into because they realized, there are already some established brands who are, in the premium segment. Now, I think if you see the recent trend, they are getting back into the
absolutely.
Even partnering with, say, bigger chip companies, to have a dedicated that kind of targeting that price segment. So that is one observation I wanted to make.
Completely agree.
So overall, if you see the smartphone data, of course, this time sales season was really good for smartphone companies, right? But overall, the trend has been pretty slowish and sluggish overall. So do you think that, even though it's not fully tapped, the entire market has not been fully tapped. But do you think the smartphone segment has like sort of reached some sort of a saturation where people were replacing phones like very quickly, but now the replacement is slightly slower or longer? And do you see there is a bit of slowness in the market?
See, the market is not growing at the pace that we expected it to grow. And it's not growing for the last 3 years, almost 148 to 152 million kind of a market.
Mm-hmm.
Also, what's changing is that the quality of the phones have improved drastically. So the replacement cycle has reduced. Also, after COVID, the purchase pattern of the consumers changed big time. So there was almost a 2% year-on-year growth, but that was not very, very big. Then what happened was there was a shift from the 4G to 5G, wherein most of the chipset and the companies, they started focusing on 5G, and there was a shortage of chipset in 4G because many of the countries across the globe were moving to 5G. So because India still had a huge market of 4G, so 4G, though the demand was still quite high, the chipsets were not available. The entire supply chain ecosystem was not geared up in that way. 5G was becoming little expensive initially for the consumers because India also requires 5G maybe at 8K to 12K, and most of the 5Gs were that time greater than 25K or anything between 15 to 20K. They are saying we are 5G ready. So 5G ready, which means you don't have all the bands with you. Maybe it works somewhere, it does not work somewhere. So all these things were going on, but still this market has a lot of opportunity because many of the states, the tele-density still is lower than 60%, 70%. If the tele-density is still lower than 60 to 70%, means still a lot of opportunity for the operators as well as the device manufacturers.
That's a great observation, and I'm sure the COVID was especially very difficult for a lot of us, and especially everything came standstill, and you had like major logistics disruptions and supply chain disruptions, and it's good to see that that all the brands are now. It looks like a blurry memory, but it was a big jolt to everything. Now, I've just browsed through the TECNO's smartphone portfolio and online. I see like some really good looking phones over there. We'll talk about foldable phones as well.
Sure.
But it will be great right now. I want to understand like what is your brand offering at the moment, how diverse it is right now. If you want to give a walkthrough of it, क्या क्या है यहाँ पर?
Like I say, we say let's stop at nothing beyond the extraordinary. We have a complete range. If I start with our Pop series and the Spark series, that is our entry segment, starting from 6K to 12K, and it is doing extremely well. And Spark series, recently we have also launched a 5G phone below 10K. Then we have our high performance segment, which is the POVA segment, which is mostly for gamers, because it is a phone which has, in terms of performance, in terms of battery, in terms of if a Uber driver uses a phone or a gamer uses a phone, they are mostly always charging it because they require a lot of battery in spite of being a big battery. So the battery is charging as well as a phone is cooling on its own. So we have a lot of technologies which are working on them. Then we also have the Camon series, which is a camera-centric series, which I already talked about, and it's doing extremely, extremely good. The Camon 30 Premier was an example wherein it was the first 100 megapixel OIS camera with 50 megapixel front camera, and the experience was so good that you could compare it with a DSLR camera. Then we have the Phantom series, which is our premium flagship series. Like we had the Phantom X2 Pro, which had a telescopic lens, and the back cover of the phone was with reusable plastics, which we used from the Indian Ocean. Then we have the foldable and the flip series. So we have, starting from 6K to 100K, we are there for each of the consumers. And we are working on the USP of each of our consumers, because it is all about disruptive innovation. It's all about giving consumers what they want, filling the aspirations. And we say we are democratizing technology, giving technology to the masses, be it a pop series, Spark, Pova, Camon, and the Phantom series. For each of these segments, the aspiration, the requirement is different, and we are giving the consumers what they want.
It's like a big buffet, right?
Yeah.
Where everybody can come and whatever they like, they can pick, right? Also, and it's a wide variety, and also I see like there are accessories and like a lot of complementary ecosystem, which you see, which is kind of unexpected from a smartphone company nowadays. One of the things now I want to shift my focus is on, like, when we talk about, when you cater to such market, when you cater to people, when you talk about Bharat, right? उस तरह के consumers को जब आप reach out करते हैं, तो उनके लिए एक बहुत ज़्यादा यू नीड टू पर्सनलाइज वो पूरा एक्सपीरियंस उनके लिए, से वर्नैक्युलर हो गया, लैंग्वेज हो गया, या फिर कुछ ऐसे ऐप्स हो जो ब्लोटवेयर भी ना हो और साथ में वैसा भी हो जो विच इज़ मच मोर जो एक्सपीरियंस को हर्ट ना करे, विच डोंट हर्ट द एक्सपीरियंस, एट द सेम टाइम इफ दे आर गुड, and also they are like hyper localized for the people of India. Like you talked about the skin color and tone and how the consumers different, like as someone who uses a front camera, right? So I want to understand, like, what are the localized features, what Indian should expect, what are the India focused features on your platform, on your phones?
First is that we have long battery, big battery. Big battery is very, very important in our phones. But when we talk about big battery, earlier when we launched big battery, that meant the phone is heavy or it's thicker. Now that's not the case. A consumer does not want one or two things. He wants a bouquet of things with one or two major things which must be there. So somebody wants a big battery with a bright display. Somebody wants a bright display with a wow camera. Somebody wants a better RAM ROM. Somebody wants a chipset which is of a particular variety or a particular capability. So, and somebody says like our Pova series, it has arch light. The gamers loved it because for them, when you keep the phone, when you're having a WhatsApp, it's different, SMS is different, colors change. So it was a very different feel. For different kind of consumers, we have different features that we give to the consumers. And when you speak to 5 consumers, then as you move up the ladder or down the ladder in terms of metro to tier 6 or tier 6 to metro, there are certain things that they change.
So building on this, like, I want to understand what is your strategy for the retail market, and how does it align with the things like smaller towns, aspirational values, as well as I want to look at it from that prism. Like, how do you retail? What is the retail strategy? And right now, also want to just on top of it, I want to ask you about the online and offline. I remember there are online only brands, then there are offline only brands, and then distributors backlash is there, the price disparity is there. Right now, e-commerce is such a big thing, right? You ought to have it on the, you go back way back, right, when you all started the trend, right? Now you have quick commerce now doing smartphones, like, so how do you, so just if you can be great, if you can just help simplify this for our audience.
See, when we started, TECNO was a completely offline brand. And we also aspired to be completely offline, and we work very closely with Amra, we work very closely with Purvika, Sangeeta, MyG, as well as the Reliance retail chains. But during COVID, the online purchase increased because people were not able to go offline. Though we had a lot of home deliveries and other things planned, we had a lot of tie-ups wherein we did extended warranty, delivery at home, but still there was an online thing happened. So Techno had worked very closely with Amazon, and we were an exclusive partner to Amazon, and we worked very, very deeply with Amazon, and few of our models were the fastest and the largest selling models with Amazon. But to be very frank, for us, deep inside, we are still an offline brand. Quick commerce is here to stay. Now, it is just spoiling us. I went to Indore the other day. I forgot my charger, and suddenly, once I reached my hotel, I said, "Oh, I forgot my charger." I went to Zepto. I ordered a charger. 8 minutes, I had a charger. So, otherwise, you can't think about these things.
Yeah. Do you think that there will be, like recently we saw experimenting with, say, quick commerce, right? Do you think, you will also be on quick commerce at some point?
Quick commerce with accessories have started doing quite well. It's maybe started with groceries or vegetables or fruits, but it's evolving very, very fast. We need to see how does it evolve. During Diwali, they also, in 10 minutes, serviced gold coins. So that is how it is. So we are working closely with them for our accessories and AIoT products. But we need to see how does the entire mobile ecosystem, because mobile ecosystem is a lot to do with touch and feel, understand. So suppose you forget a mobile and you want to buy a mobile just for 4 or 5 days, maybe you will buy from quick commerce. But they are very, very fast and they are evolving. So we are working and understanding the consumer behavior. And if we see the consumer really working with the quick commerce team on handsets, we will work with them. But our first love always remains the retailers of the country.
Yeah, because the look and feel, and also in a way it's like instant gratification. If you like something, you experience it and you buy it at the same time. But also if you see from quick commerce, as you said, it's very dynamic. Things are changing. People and different kind of products are being added to their catalog, and it is like I could not fathom things like gold you mentioned. Those things will be on quick commerce, and within इतनी क्या urgency आएगी कि 10 मिनट में gold चाहिए, right? So it's something, a trend to watch out for, definitely, and it will be really interesting to see how smartphone brands like yours align with this kind of change, right? But still, do you think that it's still concentrated to the urban cities? Because in smaller towns, there is usually not the need for a quick commerce because they're there, right?
So India is moving very fast. Mm-hmm. I will never say what is a urban syndrome today will not be a semi-urban syndrome tomorrow. See what happens. You on a Dhanteras want to go to buy a 5-gram gold coin. Traffic, parking, inside the gold shop. So eventually what is the need? There are 2 needs. One is the shopping experience, कि मैं भीड़ में जाऊंगा और धनतेरस में मेरे को वो gold coin चाहिए. That's also an experience which I love. But maybe some consumers say at the end of the day it's a gold coin. So if somebody delivers to me, that's also okay. Mm-hmm. So it's all about what the consumer wants. But what is being used in a Delhi, Gurgaon or a Kolaba, Mumbai today, very soon it will be in a tier 3 and a tier 4 market. We have population. So it's a huge workforce that we have. Zomato, Swiggy, Zepto, Blinkit. These things wouldn't be possible if we didn't have these kind of workforce, this population. So at times we say we have a population, it's a problem for us. But if you see quick commerce, the food deliveries were never possible if this population was not there, and so many people getting employment.
Correct.
So there is a positive and negative to everything actually.
Okay. So discussed 5G as well, right? And this is something which I've been asking to quite a few people in the industry as well. Like the way we thought the 5G will expand, do you think it's really expanding the way, like especially when you talk about democratizing, right? It coming down to the handset of common people, especially in the budget segment. Do you think that transition has already happened, or is it happening at that space? And also, like what are the as a smartphone company? Can you talk about, is 5G adding a 5G right now? Is it much more an expensive thing to do? Like, does it cost more?
See, 5G is moving faster than what we expected actually. Now, 70% of the consumers who buy a phone greater than 8K, the first thing that they want is it a 5G phone? So, above 10K, maybe 94% of the consumers want a 5G phone. Maybe 6% of the consumers will be okay with a 4G, but it has to have very, very high configuration. Otherwise, consumers are very clear. 70 to 75% consumers want a 5G phone. And the good part about, again, operators is, in India, like many other countries, 4G and 5G, the tariff is absolutely different. 5G is much more expensive. So the consumer is still okay with a 4G phone. But India, hardly any tariff difference between a 4G and a 5G in terms of operators. But yeah, is 5G phone more expensive than 4G? Yes. The chipset is expensive. And also, till the time you really have a 6128 or a minimum 464 kind of a configuration, you will really don't get the experience of a 5G. So ideal experience is 6128, 6256, 8256, 12512. But minimum should be 464. Anything below that, 5G experience will not be there. So it's till now 364, 464, some very aggressive segment, maybe a 332, though it's almost over, can still be a 4G but very aggressive price.
What is your what is your 5G roadmap? Like, if I have to ask, if you can give us some sneak peek, okay, this is how we are going to approach 5G, and this is what are the things people should expect from us.
8K to 10K, we will have very aggressive 5G portfolio. And above 10K, our 5G portfolio will be competitive with the best. And that is how the market is moving. Because consumers, now this IMC, India Mobile Congress, the Prime Minister started speaking about 6G. So that is how fast the country is moving. Correct. So we are the only country wherein we have 250 million consumers on 2G. We have a 4G consumer base and a 4G consumer base moving to 5G. 2G consumer base moving to 4G. So the adoption is moving very, very fast. 1.4 billion, the people, good morning to good night. A mobile phone is something that they always have in their hand.
And this is what I wanted to ask you next. Like, 5G is here, right? At the same time, when people are using 5G, 4G and high-speed smartphones, right? But at the same time, there is a large chunk of people who are still on feature phones and looking at the good quality smartphones, say that starts at say 7,000 to roughly 8,000. Still, it's a huge price bracket for people who can afford, say, 1,000 rupees phone, right? For them, 1,000 to 8,000 a big shift. And it's, as you mentioned, like we are talking about 6G already, right? So what is your opinion? How do you see that ecosystem? Why we are not able to tap into that segment yet?
This is the answer everybody is finding actually. See what happens, feature phone 2G segment is anywhere between 600 to 1500. Now Jio has been quite aggressive with a very aggressive 4G feature phone, Jio Bharat. And they want that the 2G segment to move to 4G because that is where consumers are going to get absolute experience. But if a consumer, feature phone consumer, eventually wants to buy a smartphone, and as I said, maybe a minimum configuration 232 or a 332 smartphone will not come less than 5,500. So 5,000 to 1,000, it's a 4,000 difference. it's 5 times for that consumer. And we are working on a lot of affordability schemes. We are one of the best in terms of affordability, giving a lot of EMI options to the consumers. But primarily these affordable schemes are very aggressive from 10,000 rupees. So if you want to buy a 10,000 rupees phone, you can pay 1,000 rupees and buy a phone. But if you want to buy a 5,000 rupees phone, a 6,000 rupees phone, a 7,000 rupees phone, then you have to give 6,000 or 7,000 rupees. So for 1,000, 1,500 consumer to give 6,000, it's not that easy, because that consumer, it's not so easy for that consumer. That consumer is also growing. His aspiration is growing. But then spending 6 times of his budget on mobile phone, which priority is that coming? Because of which refurbished phone sales are increasing. Almost 35-40 million refurbished phone sell in India. Why? Because from 1,000 to 5,000 rupees, that is the market the consumer taps. Because eventually he wants experience, he wants to move to 4G, he wants to eventually move from a 4G to 5G. So aspiration is there, but at times means are not there. So brands as well as lot of finance options people are working around it, but still we don't have a solution to it.
And now that I've seen quite a few brands trying to experiment, say sub 5,000 segment, and not really delivering the kind of quality it should be. Maybe it's because of the kind of a reviewers fatigue also, that we're used to higher end phones. We might not understand it, but still in the longer term use also I've seen those phones don't really, at that point it's better to have a feature phone that works rather than have a budget ultra low cost budget smartphone that doesn't work in the longer run, right? Because these people are not going to buy phones very frequently like
Correct.
we'll do, right? That's great. Now coming to the next thing which we discussed at the starting of the conversation was the foldable phones. I have also seen personally the journey of foldable phones, from that opens like a book, but the quality, there was creases, there were a lot of people pointed out, the experience is not that great, exuberantly priced, it was beyond. But yeah, of course, I get it. After a long time in the smartphone industry, we could see that, there is some sort of there is something called new and people are looking forward to it. But now a lot of time has passed since then. I want to understand, first of all, what is your roadmap? What are the products you have in terms of foldable category, and how have you seen this segment growing or maybe declining, whatever it is? Please tell us.
See, first, I'm using a foldable phone, and you will be happy to know the first fold that we manufactured and sold in India was made in India, made by Indians, and made for Indians. And we were the second brand in India to come up with foldable phones. The first brand which came till almost Series 3, Generation 3, they were importing it. So that is our capability in terms of our manufacturing, in terms of our Atmanirbhar capabilities, and also with our Generation 1 Fold, which was having the biggest display, biggest battery, wow camera, RAM, ROM, very rugged. Because when you open the phone, maybe you open it every time, there should not be any crease, number one. Number two, there should not be any problem in terms of the hinges. So this is what we developed, and this is not only with the V Fold, Phantom V Fold. When we launched the Flip, we did the same thing. So TECNO is always known for very aggressive pricing, because we want the consumer base to increase. Maybe when competitions were selling it at 150, 160, 170K, we started selling it sub 100K. And we further came during festivals, we further came to sell it around 70K. So that is what, now this is the Generation 2, very sleek. This phone, if you even throw like a flying saucer, nothing will happen. That is how rugged it is. You keep it inside water, nothing will happen. You will say, why should I do it? Obviously, nobody will keep it inside water, but just in case, because these are expensive phones.
Can I keep it in the ice and take it out?
You can keep it anywhere. If you can keep it in water temper, we have done so many back pocket checking, drop checking. You can throw it. But the biggest thing is, what does the consumer want from a foldable device? And we are working on that. And slowly the usage is increasing. Now, people don't want to, whenever you are in an Uber, you are traveling, you don't want to open a laptop for a meeting. So people were using iPads or tablets. Now, with this device, you don't require anything. You have a PPT, you have some Excel. You want to watch India playing Australia the first test. And you don't want to miss, how Virat or Jaiswal are batting or Bumrah is bowling. This is a wow device. But now what is happening is, foldable, if the consumer is using the primary screen too much, then fold does not have so much value.
Correct.
So it is, if the consumer is using 80% primary display, then fold has no value. But if the consumer is saying 40% I'm using the secondary display, I'm opening and I have a lot of things to do around it,
Correct.
then fold really means a lot. So the usage pattern, it's a habit. And slowly, the prices of fold is coming down. The weight of fold is coming down. The specs are improving. So be it a fold or a flip, the usage behavior is increasing. But you need to give them quality. You need to give them looks. You need to give them everything. And these are expensive devices. So you need to have the premiumization. If the premiumization is not there, then consumers will not buy it. So that is what fold and flip is all about. Design, durability, premiumization.
Are you going to launch more foldable phones?
Yes.
Is there any timeline which you would want to share with us right now? Or maybe we can move on to other things.
No, we will be launching in December and January. And then next year also we will be launching our fold and flip. So it will be a continuous journey for us.
Got it. So foldable phones are going to be a stable portfolio.
And slowly it is going to pick up.
Correct. Got it. And I'm assuming the price and the experience will always be the differential.
Yes.
Right. So now we have talked about 5G, we have talked about foldable phones, we have talked about all the high-end things, and कोई भी conversation आज के डेट में AI के बिना पूरा नहीं होता है. So sir, मुझे ये जानना है कि how do you see AI in aligning, getting deeper into a smartphone experience from the ecosystem point of view? How do you see, कितना इसमें buzz है, कितना hype है, कितना real है? Like how much of AI we are not machine learning always existed, right, on the smartphones, right? We had a lot of things which were driven through all these technologies, but now everything is been now swept under the umbrella term called AI. So what is your 2 cents on AI, especially in the context of smartphone, and what should a consumer should expect AI on a smartphone? What does it mean? Like what difference it become? How different it becomes?
See, how I see it is, tomorrow AI will know you better than your wife or your mother. That is how it is. Because you are always on the device. And your usage pattern, what you are using, whom you are talking, how you are talking, which app. And it will be a personal assistant to you. So what we are really doing is how AI is really going to help you in your day-to-day life. That is what you are useful. That is what is useful for you. Rest all is gimmick. See, when we do marketing or anybody does marketing, there will be 70% which will really be useful and 30% ye bhi hai. When you buy an automobile, they will show you so many features. Maybe 70% of it you will use. 30% is still there, which when you talk to our friends, you can show it, but you will really not use it. Now, there are many companies, brands who are talking about circle to search. So then, but what we are really wanting is we want to give AI to the masses. We are not saying that AI will only be in devices greater than 70K, greater than 100K. Then the ticket size becomes very, very small. What we really want is that maybe like models like us, like POVA 6 Neo, Camon 30 series, these are mid-segment phones. In this, how you can have AI-enabled features like Ella, ChatGPT 3.5, then you have sketch-to-image AI, AGCI portrait. There are, like, you draw a picture and then the portrait will be a beautiful picture. Sketch to image AI. So there are a lot of things that you will work on. Then you will always have a personal assistant. And when I talk about a personal assistant like Ella, it's something that will closely work with you on everything that you want to do. And slowly, Ella will keep on speaking to you. Hey, you did not drink a glass of water. By this time, you did drink 5 glasses. Today, maybe less. So a lot of things that will be there. And then we are also collaborated with Sony, wherein on the picture quality, the entire image resolution. So we are working, and we are working with all the price segments, not only the premiumization. MWC 2024, we launched the robotic dog, dynamic one. We also had our AR and VR devices, which the consumers really loved. So we will have a lot of high-end devices. We will also have the mid segment, and in the initial segment, like I talked about the Pop and the Spark segment, we will also have AI. But slowly it will evolve. Now it is more of talking, but less of actual features. But as you come to 2024 and beyond, these will pick up.
So before I let you go, please tell us, like, what is the roadmap for TECNO at the moment? What are the products we are going to see? What are the services? You talked about robotics? Is it something which you're going to double down on it? AR, VR, you mentioned. I really want to know, how are things progressing? So overall, if I have to ask you, very HR वाला सवाल कि अगले 2 सालों में आप अपने आप को कहाँ देखते हो? तो कहाँ देखते हैं सर?
See, last MWC, we also had our concept phone, which was the rollable phone. We also had triple foldable phones, but these are all concept phones for us currently. But we will continue to work closely with the consumers in each of this segment. First objective is to bring 5G to the masses, because that is what India requires now. Increase 4G penetration in rural and move 2G to 4G. So how we can work on empowering the consumers who are using 2G to a 4G. How we can move the 4G adoption to 5G adoption. And we have to give devices which the consumers love and also are affordable. Our entire affordability schemes, affordability activities that we keep on doing, that we will keep on increasing. Camon Phantom series, we will have a very deep focus on the mid to high segment to the premiumization. And then the mid is the POVA series, which is the high performance series. So we will continue to work across all our brand portfolios. And you will keep on hearing a lot of new launches and lot of things about AI. Maybe next time when we meet, I will talk very deep on the AI part, because this time we generally don't speak a lot before we do. But after we do, we can prove that this handset. Now we have a lot of things, as I spoke, but maybe a lot is about to be launched.
All right. Thank you so much talking with us, and thank you so much for great insights. I hope I asked you relevant questions.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here. It was
Thank
a pleasure
you.
meeting you.
Always a pleasure and great speaking to you. Thank you
so much, sir.
Thank you so much.